Dylan, you want to watch magic tricks for 30 minutes on stream? No, I do not want to watch magic tricks for 30 minutes on stream. Wait, maybe we could watch a magic trick on stream. Actually, we could watch Vivek's reputation disappear. So Vivek Ramaswamy went on Mehdi Hasan's show. Big mistake. I'm a big Mehdi Hasan fan. If you've been watching this stream, watching this channel for a very long time, you might know that I used to watch his head-to-heads when he was on Al Jazeera, when we bring people on like the head of PMCs and different politicians and ask them really tough and tough questions in a hot seat environment in front of a live studio audience for Al Jazeera. And I thought it was some of his best work. I loved it. I loved it a whole bunch. And I was super sad that he stopped making those with Al Jazeera because I wanted more of it. I wanted more of that type of hot seat journalism. But he is doing it. He's been doing it for a while now with MSNBC, and he did it most recently with Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek Ramaswamy is not somebody I like very much, and I think you should know that before I go into this. I don't like him because he's lied, like, for example, lying about Ukraine funneling weapons to the cartels, and he proved it with an image of a javelin, which was actually an image of a completely different weapon system. Just completely different. It was like a Swedish weapon. It wasn't an American-produced javelin, but he called it a javelin, probably because he doesn't know what a javelin looks like. Just would like to say, if somebody says this is an AR-15 and shows you an AK-47, they should probably not be in charge of gun control. I don't think this guy should be in charge of a Ukraine policy. Definitely when his policy seems to be doing a Nixon-esque kind of reaching out to China, but doing that instead with Russia to exploit a Sino-Soviet split that doesn't exist. What would you have to offer the Russians to make them 180 on their relationship with the Chinese? A lot more than what they currently hold in Ukraine. Anyway, moving on. I've talked at length about what Vivek Ramaswamy is clueless on Ukraine, but I think I've talked about that enough. I want to see how he's clueless on other topics. I want to see how this used car salesman performs under real pressure and not some lightweight from CNN. Sorry for those CNN lightweights that are watching. Let's watch.
Vivek Ramaswamy, thank you so much for coming on the show today. You and I both grew up as kids of Indian immigrants who love to debate. Super confident, perhaps overconfident in our views. But here's the difference. I kind of know my limits. You, on the other hand, having never held or even run for any elected office before, be it Congress or even school board, having not voted in 3 presidential elections in a row, suddenly now want to be president, go straight for the top job on planet Earth.
I like that there's no like pussyfooting around it. The thing, I couldn't even be this aggressive with an interview subject. I always open an interview with like, hey, how you doing? You know, how's the kids? What's your favorite ice cream flavor? Okay. Why'd you kidnap those kids? Like that's how I do my interviews, right? I couldn't be so immediately boom, just like a cannonball like Mehdi is. I respect it though. I also respect that he doesn't pull the punches. Like he's just like fully honest about his perspective. He doesn't try to like soften the blow. Like let me do the centrist. Like nah, I this is why I love Mehdi interviews.
Critics would say that's the epitome of tech bro arrogance. What is your response?
That is 100% what it is. Very accurate analysis. Okay, critics are saying I'm critics. It's tech bro arrogance. It's somebody with that Silicon Valley mentality who thinks because he managed a few tech startups, he can run the country like a tech startup. Problem is, you can't pump and dump the country.
To them. I get that you're an outsider. Personally, I like outsiders. Yeah. But what have you done that even qualifies you to be president of the United States?
So look, Mehdi, I have been taking on bureaucracies my entire life. I took on the bureaucracy of big pharma starting in my late 20s, at a time when I think pharma was corrupt and going in a lot of directions that they shouldn't have been. I actually built a multi-billion-dollar business developing.
I hope they talk about his pharmaceutical record because there's some interesting stuff there. I don't want to spoil because I haven't watched this interview yet. I want to tell you guys this. I haven't watched it. I only saw like a minute clip on Twitter and I saved the rest for it. Because for me, this is like a steak. I don't know if you guys know this, but I go steak hunting in Ukraine, every major city. I try to find where the best steak places are and eat there. To me, this is like a great steak. I gotta savor it, you know? I gotta savor it. I want it to be a new experience for me in every city. I want this to be a brand new experience for me, and I want to experience it with you guys.
medicines that pharma had abandoned. I took on the ESG bureaucracy, competing with firms like BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard to build a successful firm called Strive. Yes, none of that is in government, but it is in the private sector. It involves taking on bureaucracies.
Okay, can I do something similar? Okay, let me try this. I'm 22. I can say it like this. You know, I've never held elected office, but I know what it's like to fight bureaucracy. In Ukraine, I had to deal with overarching press officers who interfered with our journalism, and I had to find ways to maneuver around a dangerous political and physical environment. I had to make sure to go to some of the deepest places that others wouldn't, to record interviews and talk to those affected by the war directly. I mean, here in Ukraine, I can say I didn't go with the establishment shills. I went against the mainstream media bureaucracy and went as a freelance journalist against the grain, because I know that the truth should not be sold away. I'm 22, right? I can do a spiel and make my accomplishments, which in and of itself does not make me a good administrator of a nation, which is very different from a company or very different than reporting or doing journalism. It's not the same. The nation is not a business, okay? The nation is not a big old Amazon store. Because the point of Amazon, the point of companies are to make money. That's what capitalism is. Make money, right? If we just make it so the government's job is to make money, right? And not prioritize the wealth and well-being of people, then we have a problem.
And that exactly is my mission here, is taking on the biggest bureaucracy of all, that in the federal government in Washington, D.C. And the other thing I'll add to that, Mehdi, is it's not just the outsider pitch. I think we do need an outsider. I think it's good to have a business background.
By the way, being an outsider is quickly just being cope for somebody with zero experience. It's one thing if somebody fought against the establishment on a bunch of issues, been in politics for years. Like Bernie Sanders is someone who I would say is relatively a political outsider from the establishment, right? He's been against the grain for years, but has political experience. A lot of times, though, this is just cope because you don't want your inexperience to be a weakness, so you're just trying to make it into a strength. And I'm noticing it more and more, and it's getting more and more annoying.
But I'm also an outsider who deeply understands the law and the Constitution in this country. And I think that's the unique combination that actually makes this my calling. And I hope that we're going to be successful in reviving this country.
So you talk about your business background. Let's talk about that. You made your name and made a lot of your early big money from pushing an Alzheimer's drug that had already failed 4 clinical trials when you bought it. You then talked it up on CNBC, in Forbes, on the cover. Your company's subsidiary shot up by billions in value when it went public in 2015. But then the drug failed its phase 3 trial on your watch. The company lost 75% of its value in a single day. Ordinary investors like the California State Teachers Pension Fund lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. But you cashed out beforehand via your parent company to the tune of, I believe, over $37 million. Your critics say it's a classic pump and dump scheme. What do you say to them?
Yeah, Mehdi, that's the standard.
The only thing I pump and dump is liberals. I'm sorry. Okay.
Opposition research during politics reading line. Anybody in the biotech industry knows this story.
I'm so sick of his fucking snarky one-liners. Trump was funny with the snarky one-liners. His one-liners are annoying, right? His best moments at the debate was not when he threw out the one-liners, right? It was when he got to do his long spiels or whatever. He's not good with the one-liners. He should stop it. He's not Trump. At least not when it comes to the one-liners.
Very well.
We were never going to get any good Vivek moments where he's like, so Santa Claus, huh? You're 6. Do you still believe in him? I know at that age it's marginal. We're never going to get moments like that from Vivek. Vivek isn't as funny. He's got all the worst qualities of Trump, and he's not funny.
Well, 99.7% of Alzheimer's drugs have failed. That's thousands of drugs. Mine was one of them. But the company I founded, Roivant, developed a range of medicines. And the way I made my money was not through the failure of that Alzheimer's drug. This is one of the pieces of misinformation from opposition research. I could have sold shares in that subsidiary Alzheimer's company, but didn't. So the person who was hurt by that was me.
Hold on.
But
you say this a lot, but you did sell shares in Roivant, and you made $37 million.
And Mehdi,
$37 million.
Mehdi, I think you owe it to your audience. Mehdi, I think you owe it to your audience to be accurate. That is shares in a different company, not Axovant. And those shares that I sold are worth, and those shares are worth dramatically more today. So I would have made more money had I held on to those shares. So don't believe what the opposition research purveys through the media.
It's not opposition research. We looked at your tax returns, which you very kindly have released.
Yeah, exactly.
And you made
voluntarily released. Because I want to be transparent.
You made 300 grand in 2014 on capital gains. In 2015, after the IPO of this Axovant, you made $37 million in capital gains. Yet others didn't make that kind of money.
After Mehdi, give me a break. After Roivant, the multi-billion-dollar business that developed 40-plus medicines, yes, I sold shares in that. And that business, if I may actually allow you to know how I made my money, developed 5 FDA-approved therapies that are now FDA-approved today.
After you sold
one
the
of them is a life-saving therapy in kids.
They weren't FDA-approved when you were CEO,
Another
were
one,
they?
They were FDA. Actually, over the time that I developed them, we took them all the way through phase 3, and then we did a $3 billion deal that actually.
They were approved a year and a half later after you sold the company.
Yeah, so Mehdi, I'm not going to fault you for not knowing the first thing about biotech because that's not your job. But getting through phase 3 is the final stage of clinical testing.
Dude, I'm sorry. Like, Trump would have made it so much funnier, man. Trump would have made it so much funnier. Like, Trump would have been like, you're clueless. You don't know anything about health. I know all the things about health. I have the best health. You look very unhealthy, diseased, in fact. He would have made it so much more funnier. So much more funny. He would have made it funnier.
Before you hand in the application, yes, my company did a $3 billion deal that actually did make money for those shareholders. And so, yes, I have built, Roivant's a publicly traded company, nearly $10 billion public company today that I built as the sole founder from scratch as one of several companies that I've built. So, yes, I have a business record that I'm proud of and will equip me to lead this country.
You mentioned stage 3 trials. The Alzheimer's drug failed it after you did a lot of touting of it. You say 99.7% failed. You never said that at the time. Do you have any regrets about how you hyped that drug?
I did say that.
CEO of Roivant said this week that you hyped the drug. Do you regret hyping it?
We did not hype the drug. To the contrary, actually, one of the things that I found
this week.
Well, I can't speak for what is or isn't. I haven't read any article that you're quoting, so I don't exactly know what you're referring to. The fact of the matter,
Mehdi should quote it. Mehdi should quote it right now.
Is though
whatever.
I have been
he'll keep up the pressure. I should stay out of the bleachers yelling in.
At every step of the way. Everyone who is in the biotech industry knows that Alzheimer's disease is the graveyard for medicines. But I still think it's an important area of need. And I'll say this, Mehdi, is, you know what? If I serve for 2 terms, I'm still going to be in my 40s when I leave the White House. It is a personal passion of mine to come back and see if Alzheimer's disease hasn't been cured. I do want to play a role in still delivering treatments and cures for that disease. And people who don't take risks, don't achieve meaningful impact, the medicines that I did develop, I'm proud of. And you don't get there without having a number of medicines that you test along the way. And the other thing I will say is our success rate under my watch was higher than probably nearly 99.9% of biotech startups in the last decade. So, yeah, I stand by that record. I'm not afraid of taking risks. That's part of the American spirit.
Well, technically, the successes were a year and a half after you sold the company.
Well, he's not a fan of taking risks, unless it has to do with, the freedom of, 44 million people in Ukraine and them not getting dumped in mass graves. Then, no, he can't take that risk. But he will take the gigantic risk of offering Russia a big old deal and just hoping that they break away a relationship from the Chinese. Okay. I don't know. I don't know how his risk aversion works.
But we'll get bogged down. Let's talk politics.
Mehdi, that's dead wrong. And I would sorry to say you're embarrassing yourself in front of anybody who knows anything about biotech for knowing that phase 3 trials are the final stage. Okay. The final stage, the FDA phase 3 studies succeeded. So you're barking up the wrong tree, but we can continue to move on.
Let's talk politics. We do. We want to talk lots of stuff. Sure. You're an advocate, your critics say, of fantasy politics, of magical thinking. They say you propose stuff that can't be done. For example, you said on Meet the Press the other week that if you had been in Mike Pence's place on January the 6th, you would have insisted on first passing a bill that night to bring in single-day voting on Election Day with paper ballots.
This is insane. I don't know what he's about to, if he's about to say he didn't say that, he did say this shit. He said that while in office, he would do massive voting reform the day, if he was VP Mike Pence, the day of the election, he would have done massive voting reform. That's not how that works. You can't just walk in and drop a bunch of documents on the table and tell everybody, pass this. When you've got like a 50-50 Senate, people are going to want to have to read the documents. Isn't that a complaint I hear all the time? That we don't give enough time for politicians to read the documents? It's not going to be like a one-page document that says make vote good. It's going to be like a complex piece of legislation. You can't just like write. You'd have to build it up and then distribute it amongst all the senators, give them time to review it. So would he have done this in the months leading up to it? Would he have done whatever. No, he couldn't have done that.
Accurate.
Government
I
issued
never
ID.
said that night. I never said that night.
What you would have done on January the 6th, and you said I would have done this. And
I said what I would have done differently is that I was precise about the period between, and this is still ambitious, I will admit, but at least let's get my view correct. It is ambitious. Between November 4th and January 6th, I think it was an opportunity for heroism.
Just to be clear, you never said anything about.
He didn't. He did not.
At every step.
Let's play the clip, guys. Do we have the clip?
I've said this in countless forums.
Have a listen to the clip.
On your Chuck Todd's.
What's wrong with him playing the clip? What's wrong with the clip?
Spliced clip in all of my written statements and everything I've said.
Hold on, we're playing the clip right now.
In that period,
let's play the clip.
Between the election.
They just cut him off. He can't. Dude, he's a machine, man. He can't stop talking.
Here's what
there he is. He still talking?
I would have said. We need single day voting.
He was? Okay.
On election day. We need paper ballots, and we need government-issued ID matching the voter file. And if we achieve that, then we have achieved victory, and we should not have any further complaint about election integrity.
So
I would have driven it through the Senate.
So what would you have done with Mike Pence? You would have not certified the election?
So in my capacity as president of the Senate, I would have led through that level of reform. Then on that condition, certified the election results, served it up to the president, President Trump, then to sign that into law, and on January 7th, declared the re-election campaign pursuant to a free and fair election.
Vivek,
number one, he didn't say November 4th. Number two, he wouldn't have been able to pull it off. Number three, he shouldn't be doing it in the first place, trying to overturn the results of a democratic election that has not been proven stolen after all the court cases Trump put forward to try to push back upon the idea that, this was a free and fair election. No, actually, it was stolen. I got to tell you guys it was a stolen election. All of those court cases failed. And now you're going to overturn the results of the election anyway? Why? Why would you overturn the results of the election? We didn't do it with Al Gore when he lost his court case. We didn't do it with any of the other instances where people tried to dispute it to some extent. None of them went as far as Trump, mind you. But this was never something that we did in any other instance. Why is Trump getting special treatment? That he got his fifi hurt, so he lost. So we got to overturn it and have a redo. It's like rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Oh, I lost 2 out of 3. Let's do 3 out of 5. That's what this feels like.
Not only do you not mention anything about November, but let's say you did do November. That joint session was not a legislative session. The vice president doesn't have the power to introduce legislation. Neither party would have backed such a bill.
Oh, come on,
and it couldn't have been passed in a day.
The fact of the matter is,
naive stuff. The president,
the president and vice president absolutely drive legislation through Congress. That is exactly how things work.
Trump wasn't doing legislation. He was busy pushing the big lie, as you pointed out yourself in your book.
Well,
so he wasn't
and
there.
I wasn't
Mike
the vice president of the United States.
Passed a bill,
and I was not the vice president of the United States. You guys in the media, you guys in the MSNBC crack me up to sort of create a hypothetical situation to say, if you had been vice president, what would you have been doing? I'm telling you exactly what I've been doing, but you're saying, but that's not what Donald Trump was doing.
That was the question, because Mike Pence is also running in this campaign, and there's a big question about whether what he did was the right thing to do, since a decent amount of the Republican Party, which he is sympathetic towards, believes the election was stolen.
This is
Mike
a
Pence
joke.
asked you,
Let's actually have a substantive conversation. Do you want to have a substantive conversation about what should have happened, or do you want to play a game of gotcha? Because you have the choice. The choice is yours. Do you actually want to have a substantive conversation? If you do, I'm down to do it. Do you want a substantive conversation? What we need.
You said substantive 4 times.
Actually, if you want to get a word in, if you're going to speak the truth and ask a legitimate question, have at it.
I think it is a legitimate question. Multiple people wondered about your knowledge of how Congress works, suggesting Mike Pence, by the way, on the debate stage, asked you if you would have supported what he did. It's not an MSNBC question. It's a Republican vice president question.
Yes.
So fine, you don't want to answer it.
What I'm saying is, it was a missed opportunity for heroism, not in one day,
He can't introduce the legislation. He can't. Mike Pence does not have the authority to do that.
but I think that in a period of 2 months, and I think you're a smart guy.
It
You
couldn't have been
understand
done
this.
in a lame duck
There's an
Congress,
American
Vivek. You're
confidence.
a smart guy. You know it couldn't have been done in 2 months.
I think under extraordinary circumstances, in extraordinary times, we have an American Confidence in Elections Act. It's literally making its way through Congress now. ACE. I support it.
Oh, wow. Has it passed? Oh, it hasn't. Why? Gridlock. How would you have done it, person with no political experience and no ties to anyone on the Capitol? He just thinks he's going to walk in there. He's going to like give a spiel in there about like election security or whatever. And his suit and tie and his big old smile with that Silicon Valley swagger. And Joe Manchin to every single Democrat, to every single Republican are going to stand up, they're going to clap, and they're going to pass the act. That's not how politics works. This isn't like Mr. Smith goes to Washington. This is the real world.
I think if we had gotten that done during that window, further we said single-day voting on
Democrats
election
wouldn't
day
have
as a
agreed to
national
voting
holiday.
ID, and Mitch McConnell.
Dude, does he think like you go into Congress and to pass a bill, you got to like just like roll a D20? And he's just going to, if he just hits the nat 20, he gets it through?
Wouldn't have agreed to a national
I think
holiday.
Democrats should agree to it.
We can argue forever.
I think Democrats should agree to it.
That's a
And
different
that's what I
argument. It
stand
wouldn't
for.
have
I
happened,
think
is
we're
what
still
I'm
going to
saying.
get that done when I'm the president.
Okay.
When
So
I'm
you
the
said
president,
recently,
not in some
make a lot of-
fantasy land where I was vice president
Jesus Christ, he talks.
in
Got it.
some
So
other
let's-
year in the historical
let's talk
history.
Podcaster in chief, man.
You as
But in
president.
actual, what I'm running for,
Understood.
this is what we're going to do.
Let me ask a question so we don't run out of time. Please don't filibuster. I just want to ask a question about when you're president, you say you said, this is your words, quote, if you want to stay out of no-win wars and make America stronger at home, I know how to get that done. Genuine question, Vivek, not a gotcha. How? How do you know how to get that done? With respect, you've literally never done anything like that in your life. I could go out on the street outside the studio, grab someone. They have as much experience as you do of keeping us out of foreign wars. That's not an insult. That's just a statement of fact.
Oh! Oof. I felt that, man. My stomach just went up into my neck and then back down. Oh my God. Huh. I used to box. I had never been punched as hard as he just slapped the shit out of this man. Oh my God. Oh my God. Like, that's the one thing, like, it's one of the most, like, kind of milquetoast type of, pitches to the American voter is, I know how to do this because I have a record. That's like Ron DeSantis' pitch to the American people. The Republican base doesn't give a fuck. He's like, hey, you guys don't like all of them queers? Like, I did the Don't Say Gay bill. You guys don't like this? I did this bill. You guys don't like Disney? I'm fucking with Disney. You don't like this? What's the culture war issue? I swear, I'll be on it. Look, I have a record. And he does. He does have a record. He got things through in Florida. He passed things. He worked with Republican far-right legislators to get legislation passed. He got it. Like, I could give him that. He achieved legislative accomplishments. That just means jack squat apparently in this Republican primary. Apparently everyone can claim, even with no political experience, that they know how to get things done, even if they don't. But it's usually like the pitch of the most milquetoast politician. Like, I know how to get it done. Experience is important. It's very important. I think Donald Trump showed how important it was. Part of the reason why the infrastructure bill got passed and the Inflation Reduction bill got passed. It's the Inflation Reduction Act got passed because Joe Biden had experience and had these ties into the Senate, into the Congress, and was able to make it bipartisan, was able to convince people to get on it. But he literally has zero experience in politics.
No, it's not an insult. It's a fact, right? And it is also a fact that everybody else who does have experience in the foreign policy establishment has been sending us into no-win wars for a long time.
See, this is the thing. He's just trying to use his lack of experience in order to justify, like, not justify. He's using his lack of experience not as a negative, but as a benefit. He's trying to twist it. He's trying to market it differently, right? But if I walked in to, like, I don't know, if I walked into Radio Shack on its final days, right? Or Blockbuster in its final days. And I walked in and I said, well, guys, you should put me in charge. And they look over to me and say, well, Mr. Burns, we're in a pretty desperate situation. Do you have any experience turning around companies in this type of a situation? No, I have none. But so far, you guys have been run by businessmen, people with experience in business. Maybe it's time to have somebody with no experience or knowledge in business. I would be thrown off of the roof of the building if I went into the office of Blockbuster, went to their headquarters and say that. I would be laughed out minimum. No way. And anyone could see in that situation how ridiculous it is. But because he's tying this with a big old anti-establishment knot, people are going to clap like seals. You want to know all the people who actually got us out of wars, for example? Joe Biden actually has experience getting us out of wars because he got us out of Afghanistan. So there's point one for Joe Biden in getting us out of foreign wars. He wanted to get us out of Afghanistan since 2013, by the way. We know that from, I don't know if it's internal memos, but we know it from staff at the White House that he was constantly arguing with them about, we need to get out of Afghanistan. The war is not winnable. We've gotten this off track. I understand why we fought Al-Qaeda, 9/11 and everything, but we got to leave. He's been saying that since 2013. He's been gearing up to try to pull out of the country for years. He disagreed with Obama on it. He didn't think Obama was doing enough to pull out, and he got us out. So if I'm looking at somebody who can keep us out of foreign wars with Americans on the ground dying, Joe Biden would be my pick because he's done it. He pulled us out of a foreign war. That's number one. And number two, he has been able to do quite a good balancing act in supporting the Ukrainians while making sure not to put American soldiers in harm's way. A year and a half, we've had the most deadly and largest war in Europe since World War II, and not a single American has died. Yet, we have made a very, very strong ally in Europe. I don't think that's a negative.
Both of those are,
I think that's a positive for him.
Facts. Here's how I would do it. Let's get specific, and I'm glad we finally gotten to the doorstep of actually discussing a policy agenda. Here's what I would do. Pull Russia apart in its military alliance with China. Those two countries are in a military treaty.
This shit is so stupid. I've talked about this before, but why would the Russians do this? Why? So let's say you end your support for Ukraine. You think that's going to be enough for them to end that the relationship with China that they have? They're going to stop their energy exports over there. They're going to stop their trade over there. They're going to stop any sort of military drills or cooperation that they have. Not that they agree on everything, but one thing they do agree on is breaking up American power. Why would he agree to do that? You would have to give him a lot more than just the territory that he's occupying right now. What else would you do to convince the Russians to switch over? And considering their record when it comes to the war, just word when it comes to this war, just this war. They said in 2008 that there's no ethnic issue in Crimea, no ethnic issue in Ukraine, that it's all Ukrainian territory. What happens 6 years later? They invade. They lied. While they're invading, they say they're not invading. What invasion? I don't know what you're talking about. Then they say they don't deploy troops in the Donbass until those troops are captured, and then they have to admit it. And now we have a bunch of soldiers admitting publicly that they were 100% Russian soldiers deployed to the Donbass. More and more videos of that is being released like every day. 2022, and the lead up to it, no, we're not going to invade, not going to invade. The West is just being paranoid, and then they invade. Why would we trust them after you've done this great gambit, giving them Ukraine and more, and pissing off our European partners? Which, by the way, he wants to do this so he can challenge the Chinese. America has 59% of the world reserve currency. Second, it's the European Union. That's 20% of the world reserve currency. They're also a massive trade partner with China. Germany is currently in a form of recession. Their economy is going through a pretty tough time right now. A lot of European economies are going through a pretty tough time right now as they change their energy imports, as their economies shift, and they have their own internal economic problems. How are you going to get them to agree to challenge Chinese power and possibly sanction them and further hurt their own economy if you're not even taking their security issues seriously, like the largest war in Europe since World War II and the Russian invasion of Ukraine? How are the Poles going to take you seriously when you know it's a priority for them? Well, I don't know if he does, because I don't know if he even thinks about it. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Finland. How is this going to leave Olaf Scholz looking? Oh, I sent all these supply to Ukraine, and America just 180'd out of nowhere. Once again, backstabbing Americans. The Iran deal to this, to, oh my God, man, they cannot be a reliable partner. America is not a reliable partner. No, we're not going to work with you to sanction the Chinese. We're not going to work with you to challenge the Chinese. Of course they wouldn't. This plan makes no sense. He hasn't thought about it past like stage one. He just wants, this is the Silicon Bro mentality. He looks at how all the other experts are talking about to solve the war. disregards that, disregards all the expert testimony, disregards the Ukrainian perspective, disregards people with experience in the region, and decides he's just going to kind of treat it like a tech startup. Let's just throw some stuff at the wall, see if it works. If it fails, it fails. It is what it is. You can't be taking those types of risks with the lives of millions of people.
Dating back to 2001. That is the single greatest threat that the United States faces. So I would end the Ukraine war on terms that, yes, allow Ukraine to at least come out with its sovereignty intact, which may...
That's if you give their land to Russia, then you're not having their sovereignty intact. And he has said that he is willing to do that. So no, your plan would not have their sovereignty intact.
Not even be the track they're on right now. But in return, and also make a commitment that NATO will not admit Ukraine to NATO.
So, okay, here's a question to Vivek as well, and he's never answered this. How would you stop the Russians from invading again then? If there's no NATO membership for Ukraine, and he has never outlined any security guarantees for Ukraine, what would stop the Russians from, after bungling this war, going back to the drawing board, learning lessons, licking their wounds, and re-invading? What would stop that? I mean, they've invaded Ukraine multiple times before. What would stop them from invading Ukraine again? And they've lied about it multiple times before. What would stop them from lying about it again, taking the opportunity to lick their wounds and launch an invasion with a little bit more competence this time after a wave of purges?
Conjunction. And by the way,
if anything, I just want to emphasize that this is probably the best chance Ukraine's going to get at liberation for decades, possibly in my lifetime.
For people in the foreign policy establishment, they forgot that Gorbachev was made that promise by James Baker in the United States in 1990. Well, so keep our...
It's heavily disputed. I don't even want to get into it. It's not worth it with this guy.
...word there. But in return, actually make a hard requirement that Vladimir Putin exit his military alliance with China and remove his Russian military presence from the West. That's the...
I hope... please, Mehdi. Please, Mehdi, I respect you so much. Don't let me down here. Don't let me down on this issue.
That I would
Again,
do
the fantasy land is why would Putin just agree with you? Why? Because you asked nicely, Putin will hold his word. He'll pocket your concessions and not just carry on dealing with his biggest trading partner, China?
Well, here's the thing. I actually think that China shouldn't be his biggest trading partner.
Of course you do. Of course you do. Nobody... What? Of course you do. Does Putin think that? Because that's what's important. Because he's the decision maker in Moscow, not you.
It's a mistake that we've closed off economic relations with Russia. I would lead both the United States...
Yeah, American dollars, oiling the machine, the Russian war machine. Got it, okay.
...States and the West to reopen economic relations with Russia because Putin does not enjoy being Xi Jinping's little brother. Mehdi, you're a smart guy. Look at what he's done. He's actually sent weapons to both India and Vietnam right after the February 2022 meeting he had with Xi Jinping. There are cracks in that armor, but we need to actually open our eyes to see the opportunity staring us in the face.
We will have to agree to disagree whether we think that you can persuade Vladimir Putin to drop his alliance with Xi Jinping. You have made truth the centerpiece of your campaign. So let's talk about your trustworthiness.
Yes.
For example, when CNN quoted you talking to The Atlantic about 9/11 and federal agents possibly being on the planes, you said the quote is wrong, actually. But the quote wasn't wrong. The Atlantic released the audio of what you saying exactly what they said you said.
Hold
on, let me finish the question.
Let me be crystal clear.
Let me finish the question.
The Atlantic released the whole tape. They've refused to do it. Yep.
You said on Twitter Spaces last month that no, you had never supported Bernie Sanders' mask fraud legislation, but you literally put out a tweet in July of 2020 calling it a sensible idea. You also said not once but twice in June and July that the first time you'd ever voted was in 2020 for Trump, but in fact the first time you voted for president was in 2004 for a pro-choice libertarian candidate. How can people believe what you say?
Damn. Man, I wish people brought up... Nobody ever talks about the fact that he said Ukraine sending weapons to the cartels. Didn't even get the weapons right. I mean... But it's like a tidbit fact for like Ukraine nerds like me.
So, Mehdi, let me just go through one by one. The Atlantic, yes, purposefully spliced an out-of-context quote where we have challenged them. They released the tapes. We asked them for the tapes first. They didn't give them to us. They waited then to splice them and release them publicly. I challenged the Atlantic to release that entire conversation. And what was a conversation about how many federal agents were in the field.
You said was wrong. We all heard it. We can play it if you like. No, it is exactly word for word what she quoted to you. You said they put words in your mouth.
Look, if you want... If you want hard facts, here are hard facts. That day, The Atlantic printed it. I said, that looks like something that never captured the character of our conversation. Can you ask Atlantic for the tapes? They said they would refuse to release the recording to us. So when Caitlin asked me about it, I said, that does not at all sound like the context of what I said. And then, it turns out The Atlantic releases a very, everybody should listen to it.
You're putting words in my mouth.
It functionally sends the wrong message, Mehdi.
Oh, functionally. Okay. You could have said it's out of context.
It was so badly taken out of context that it misled their audience. It was so badly taken out of context. It was basically a lie, and it misled their audience. But ask The Atlantic to release it. So my view here is, here's what I've learned: is the media distortion filters. Mehdi, if they are going to cut something before and after without the question of what the guy is that came beforehand, come on, why wouldn't The Atlantic? Why are they so reluctant to release the whole recording?
Maybe
ask
because the audio they released, you're still denying you said what's on the audio. Okay, let's ask you this question. Is Donald Trump,
it's a
as
joke
you say now,
that the media is going to selectively edit this, and this is the way this game is played. Politics is dirty. That's okay. I'm ready for it.
It's not edited, just to be clear. Is Donald Trump, as you say now, the best president of the 21st century?
Of the 21st century. Yes, he was.
Let me ask my question. Let me finish the question.
Already said yes before he finished the question. He saw an opportunity to suck the hairs off of Trump's cock, and he took it. What's theory? Thank you for the tier 1 and being sub for 7 months.
Donald Trump, as you say now, the best president of the 21st century, who you say you want as an advisor and a mentor if you become president? Or is Trump, as you've said in the past, in your books, on Twitter, a, quote, sore loser who is a, quote, danger to democracy and who did, quote, downright abhorrent and egregious things on January the 6th? Which one is he, Vivek?
Oh, it is true. In his book, he lambasts Donald Trump in his book that he wrote in 2021. But, now it's different because now he's on the campaign trail. And now the statements he said there are not as politically expedient. And, Vivek is, I think 90% of Vivek is, that way. The image John Kerry had of the flip-flop? This is like this, turned up to 11.
So to be crystal clear, between George Bush, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Donald Trump, those are the presidents of the 21st century. Donald Trump is unambiguously, as judged by the results,
unambiguously, nobody challenges it whatsoever, the
best president of the 21st century. Kept us out of wars, grew the economy.
He didn't keep us out of wars. He increased drone strikes by, I think, about 100 to 150% while in office. I guess it depends on what you mean by a war. I guess he would say, well, Ukraine is a war that we're involved in, even though we don't have troops on the ground. But Somalia isn't a war. I just like the Niger. I mean, we did have soldiers dying in Niger, but that's different. I just want to. What is a war, Vivek?
Give him full credit for that.
What is a woman? What is a war?
I want to build on that foundation and take this country to the next level.
But you've also called him a sore loser who is a danger to democracy. Those are strong words.
Would I have made the same judgments that he has made at every step of the way?
A danger to democracy. If you call somebody a danger to democracy, it's kind of hard to follow that up with, and he's the best president ever.
No, I will remind you that I am running for U.S. president because I am best positioned to lead this country forward.
Can I ask you what they are, Vivek? Yes. You say he behaved in downright abhorrent behavior that makes him a danger to democracy. What was it that was downright? Tell me what he did that was downright abhorrent.
Let's actually be really fair to your audience. So on January 10th, 2021, thereabouts, days after that incident, I wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal arguing that censorship was the real cause of what happened on January 6th. When asked in response, somebody asked me the question, are you... That's what I wrote. I'm giving you the facts of what I said. That's a hard fact. That was published in the Wall Street Journal. When pressed on, was that condoning what Trump did? My answer was no. There's a difference between a bad judgment and a crime.
And
we
you're
need
avoiding
to be able to tell the difference in this country.
What did Donald Trump do,
no, I'm not avoiding
in your view, that was downright abhorrent? Second time
I think that the thing that I would have done differently if I were in his shoes.
He doesn't want to answer it. He cannot. Dude, the hairs on his penis is now in his small intestine.
I would have declared re-election on January 7th.
This looks he couldn't look weaker right now.
I'll ask it a third time.
That's exactly the thing I would have done.
What did Trump do that was egregious, quote, downright abhorrent, and a danger to democracy? Can you just explain to our viewers? Your words.
So you're mixing two different quotes. But what did I think was reprehensible about what happened that day? Look, I think
that's not what he said. He said, "What did he do that was dangerous?"
That The way a true leader should have handled that situation should have been to actually say, this is me running for re-election, not actually litigating what is already passed and behind us. And I would have done things differently. That is not a crime, though, what he did.
Understand.
And the reason I have been so vehement.
You keep saying what you would have done. I just want to hear from your mouth. No,
I would
unless you're scared of him, why won't you say what he did that was downright abhorrent?
I'm not going to let you stitch,
you're
stitching together.
He's not stitching stuff together. Like he said he's a danger to democracy. Why is he a danger to democracy? That's very easy. You don't like using both of these quotes? Okay, then just one of them. Why is Trump a danger to democracy?
Three things from three different places.
Let's put up the tweet.
To create a caricature. Do you want
what Trump did last week?
Mehdi's got him. Mehdi has got him. He's bleeding in the water. The sharks are swimming around him. He knows it. He's not letting go.
Have an actual conversation.
Yes,
I can tell he wants to put up the treat. He's gearing down. I can see it. I could see the shift in his chair. I know he knows that he's got him.
I want you to answer my question, Vivek. Three times I've asked it.
What
did Trump do that was downright abhorrent? It's a simple question. It's your words. It's on.
In fact, not only is it a simple question, he even said it was simple. He said it was plain and simple right after.
That was downright abhorrent. It's a simple question. It's your words. It's on screen.
I think
what did he do that was downright abhorrent?
I believe that failing to unite this country falls short of what a true leader ought to do.
What is that? That is the most non-answer I've ever heard. He failed to unite the country in what was a danger to democracy and downright abhorrent. What a dodge. Like, what's the action? How did he fail to unite the country? What did he do that made the country not united?
That is why I'm in this race, is to do things differently than any prior president has done them. That's the hard truth, okay?
And that's what made him a sore loser and abhorrent.
The media
yes, your words.
And the reality is none of that is a crime.
Really?
And the reason I have been...
Nobody's asking if it's a crime. What?
So vocal.
Okay.
By the way, a lot of the actions he did during that time was a crime. Like illegally accessing voting machines was absolutely a crime.
The reason I have been so vocal is because when somebody actually prosecutes somebody for a bad judgment, and I've been clear,
I understand your objections to the litigation.
I would have made different judgments.
That's not what I asked about. I understand.
That is a distinction we have to draw.
I'm so happy he's not letting go. He's not letting him pivot out.
Understood. You say you are anti-identity politics, anti-affirmative action in a party that hates...
Okay, we're moving on. I guess he only got like 7 minutes left. I understand why he's moving. But he could have held on that for hours.
The Soros name, yet you accepted a Paul and Daisy Soros scholarship.
Let me start from the top
judgment, and I've been clear.
I understand your objections to the litigation.
I would have made different
that.
judgments.
That's not what I asked about. I
That is
understand.
a distinction we have to draw.
Understood. You say you are anti-identity politics, anti-affirmative action in a party that hates the Soros name, yet you accepted a Paul and Daisy Soros scholarship at law school that was specifically set up for the children of immigrants. It was an affirmative action scholarship, and your defense for that is that you didn't have the money to pay for law school, even though you'd already made over $1 million at the time and made another $2 million.
My defense of that is somebody gives you a merit scholarship at the age of 24, you take it. At the age of 24, somebody gives you a merit scholarship, you take it.
I watched the interview. He did say he didn't have the money. This is just a lie. In fact, if somebody links it in chat, we can watch the clip. But I saw it. I saw the clip.
I didn't say I didn't have the money. I said
he did.
A time when I had a lot less money than now. $50,000
you said exactly I didn't have the money, Vivek. You keep forgetting your quote. You said, when I didn't have the money.
So, Mehdi, I've made this really easy for everybody. And I did this in the early weeks of the campaign. I released 20 years of tax returns.
Yes, you did.
Something that no presidential candidate, let alone somebody who's successful in business, has done. I challenge Democrats and Republicans alike, including the Biden family.
With his age, that's like all of his tax returns, right? I would assume that's literally all of them.
To do it.
And
you know what? I released it so that you could look at them, so we can have an honest conversation.
I appreciate that.
The funny thing I've learned.
I do appreciate that.
I will say, I hope that is something people do in the future. That is not something I will dunk on him for. That is a good thing. That level of transparency is good.
Trump should
I think that transparency is important.
Look,
so it's already open and everybody can see it.
Exactly. We have 2009.
But the fact of the matter is, you know what I would advise every...
Hold on, you told me to look at them.
24-year-old should take
2009 and 2010, you made $750,000. You had the money to pay for law school. You didn't need a Soros affirmative action scholarship that you now criticize.
I mean, none of this is worthy, but if you think it is, let's get to the detail. That was actually the first big piece
You say
of money
you're anti-affirmative action. You took a scholarship for immigrants.
I'm anti-affirmative action.
So why did you take a scholarship for the children of immigrants?
Which falsehood would you like me to address? The financial one or the one about my views on affirmative action? Because I can go in whichever order you'd like.
Did you not make $750,000?
On the financial piece of it. Not at the time that I had applied for the scholarship that fall.
Yes, you did.
That December.
Yes, you did,
On
Vivek.
December.
This is awkward for you because
believe
you
me,
did. I've got the tax returns in front of my face.
No, it's not awkward for you. Yes,
right,
on December 31st.
No, it's not awkward for you? What does that even mean? Yeah, it's not awkward for Mehdi. It is, yeah, correct. It isn't awkward for Mehdi. It would be awkward for Vivek. What?
First, when the application for the scholarship was that October. Mehdi, you're wasting your time on childish details in October of that year when I applied for that scholarship. And it was, well, guess what? The bonuses that a hedge fund pays, and it's a shame that, again, you don't have to be an expert on this, but if you're going to spout out, you better know something about it. People pay at a hedge fund the bonuses at the end of a year, and on December 31st, that's when I was paid. I applied for the scholarship that September, and I did not grow up in a wealthy family.
Vivek, you made more money the previous year.
I made $200,000 pre-tax or whatever it was.
No, you didn't.
And
$200,000 pre-tax. By the way, can I just say, that's still a lot of money. That's still a lot of money. I wish I made $200,000 pre-tax. I don't make half of that. I don't even think I make a third of that. No, I don't make a third of that.
You didn't. Hold on. No, you didn't. You're now telling flat. In 2009,
you have my tax returns in front of you. I don't remember what I made in 2009.
In 2009, you made $650,000.
Ooh, he said 200,000. That's off by a bit.
2010, you made less, $450,000.
Man, if he's just misplacing that much money, I should go check his fucking couch cushions, huh?
So the argument that you only made the money pre the scholarship, oh, so now we're bringing.
By the way, this is why Trump didn't release his tax returns, but it would probably be in the reverse, where he's like, Trump, you only made $500,000 this year. No, I made $1 billion. That would be the reverse of what Vivek is going through right now.
Tax into, we've been using gross numbers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Vivek, you're wrong on this. Go back and check your tax returns.
$50,000 obviously makes a big difference.
And then you accepted a Soros scholarship for $50,000 when you didn't need it.
Well, you know what the fact is, Mehdi, is $50,000 did make a big difference to me back then. And anybody who has a few $100,000 in the bank is going to take $50,000 without strings attached. Take the scholarship. But my question for you is, why on earth are you, as an intelligent person interested in politics, obsessing over a 24-year-old $50,000 scholarship?
I'm interested in truth,
beneath you.
We have a country to fix. That you wear. I'm interested in truth.
And Mehdi, that's why I released 20 years. Mehdi, that is why I released 20 years of tax records. Tell your friends in the Biden administration.
That's actually his strongest argument on this. It's like, I was 24. My views have changed since then. That would be the easiest thing to say. I was 24 years old. My views have changed. That would be the easiest thing to say, yeah.
Do the same thing. Tell your Democrat candidates to do the same thing.
But it's also difficult to say that when you're also very young.
We're breaking precedents, and I think it is pathetic. I just think it is sad and pathetic that that we have important issues to talk about for the future of a country, and you're talking about a $50,000 scholarship in 2010 to go to Yale Law School when I was 24.
If you just owned
this is pathetic, and is why nobody trusts you guys.
It is pathetic in your view, but you paid a Wikipedia editor who then removed it, so clearly it's something you didn't want people to read about. Last question, because we've gone over time, and I respect you.
Who also said I was born in India.
Wait, oh snap, did he actually pay? Wait, is he capping that? Wait. So we did pay a Wikipedia editor to edit his Wikipedia page. Huh. I didn't know that.
Who also said I was born in India and misspelled and got my wife's name wrong. So yes, we actually need to correct facts when people are playing this game.
Last question. You want me to ask a substantive question? Here's what I worry about most: democracy in this country.
I would love substantive questions.
Not just under Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Last question for you. Not just under Donald Trump, but under you, people are worried about authoritarianism. You have preemptively promised to pardon Trump no matter what juries of his peers decide, as well as today extending those pardons to January 6 rioters. You've dismissed white supremacists as boogeymen and unicorns. You want to fire at least half the federal government workforce. That's over 1 million people. You want to remove the right to vote from 18 to 25-year-olds. That's over 30 million people.
Well, that last one's a little... No, that last one. He doesn't want to remove the right to vote from 18 to 25-year-olds. He just wants to institute a poll test. So they have to basically, I don't know, like recite the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see? Or like, how many stars are on the American flag? And then they get the vote, which is stupid because they're just putting another barrier between young people and voting, which just so happens to be a very large demographic that does not vote for conservatives. A demographic that doesn't turn out to vote that much anyway, but when they do turn out to vote, they don't vote for conservatives. And so it does look like horribly partisan, and it does look just like political gamesmanship and not like it's actual, like a desire to increase the knowledge of the average voter. If that was true, then it would be across the board and not just young people.
You want to get rid of birthright citizenship. In fact, you refer to voting and citizenship as...
There's a lot of stuff to drop on him at the end. I also don't like this. He's dropping too many things on him at the end. And he's giving him what? He's got like a minute and 30 seconds left. Dropping that much stuff on him at the same time is probably not fair.
Privileges, when they are, in my view and in the Constitution view, rights. It's a very anti-democratic worldview. What do you say to people who criticize you for that?
I don't think it's an anti-democratic worldview. I favor reviving the lifeblood of our constitutional republic. Revive actual free speech and open debate in this country. Revive civic duty in this country, something that our founding fathers envisioned. Revive true equality in front of the law where...
Well, actually, it would be... If you don't have the right to vote and you have to... If you have to take a poll test in order to vote, then do you have the right to vote? If they're putting another barrier in between you and compared to other people, I don't know, actually, that's a question. Would that still be, because it doesn't sound like a right to vote. Now it sounds like a privilege to vote, doesn't it?
People aren't prosecuted because of...
Either way, it's a pointless barrier between a group of people that's most likely not going to vote for him. So it looks horribly partisan.
The color of their skin or because of the content of their political views. One standard of the rule of law for everybody. I stand for the founding vision of the country where the people who we elect to run the government ought to be the ones who actually run the government, when in fact most policymaking functions in D.C. are performed by federal bureaucrats.
What he's referring to is that a lot of the bureaucracy in the United States is done by bureaucrats with experience in the field. For example, if you're working at the EPA, you're probably going to have a lot of environmental experts. And so when they're implementing policy, they a lot of times pull on their knowledge as experts in how to implement different pieces of legislation that the government introduces. And they choose, and they can have some discretion in when and how that is implemented. And that discretion is the problem, because a lot of times that expertise pushes against what the Republicans want. Now, if somebody is trying to push against a law that was introduced and is specifically going against what was voted into law by Congress, that's one thing. They should be fired. But we already have a means to fire people who do that. This just sounds like Andrew Jackson populism. Like, I'm going to fire all those people and replace them with my buddies. That's what it feels like.
So, yes, my standard is, would Alexander Hamilton and John James and Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, would they be proud of what they see today, or would they be appalled? I think if they walked around and saw Washington, D.C. today, they would be appalled. By the time I leave office in January 2033 after 2 terms,
I think they'd be more appalled if they saw an Indian in the White House.
They will once again be proud of what we've created, a government with...
I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just being blunt.
3 co-equal branches, not 4, shutting down that administrative state, reviving civic duty, and reviving one standard of the rule of law for all Americans.
I could see him saying it now. So this really was India the whole time. Columbus wasn't wrong. I could see all the jokes they'd be cracking. It'd be terrible. Horrible people. Horrible.
Americans.
Freedom of speech is kind of cool, though.
And that is not a demo.
John Adams, though. Didn't John Adams... Second president was John Adams, right? Was it John Adams? I forget. Look, we've had 46 presidents. 45 if you're a QAnoner. It was John Adams, right? Second? Yes, it was. Didn't John Adams introduce terrible legislation around how the press is regulated? It's part of the reason why I got kicked out of office was because he was cracking down on the free press. I don't know. I think if anything, you'd want to go harder on the press. Whatever.
Democratic vision or...
They were good founding fathers. They were more flawed founding fathers. They did good things. They did bad things. They're complicated people, just like everyone else.
Republican vision that is a pro-American vision that I think can actually reunite this country, which is what I believe I will uniquely be able to deliver as the next president.
Vivek Ramaswamy, we will have to leave it there. Appreciate you coming on the show, taking my questions, even if you didn't like all of them. Appreciate you taking time out from a busy campaign.
Thank you. Look forward to discussing more of the agenda in the future.
Next time, definitely.
There's no way there's going to be a next time. No way he's going to come on again. No way.